In the last video, we discussed how, in the absence of insulin, different classes of drugs can be used to manage glucose levels and prevent hyperglycemia. So, in a patient of diabetes, first we can give oral anti-diabetic drugs and other lifestyle change such as exercise. However, if diabetes is not controlled, that's an uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, we can give insulins. So, first let us discuss classification of oral anti-diabetic drugs. First class of drugs are the drugs which retard carbohydrate absorption. Now, these drugs consist of alpha glycosidase inhibitors. It includes drugs such as acarbose, voglibose, and miglitol. Now, these drugs will be discussed in detail in separate sections. However, briefly, if you want to discuss them, they will inhibit enzyme alpha glycosidase, which will prevent breakdown of starch and disaccharides, and thus the absorption of glucose will decrease. So there will be less glucose present in blood. Second class of drugs are the drugs which will decrease insulin resistance. Now, this class of drug, it consists of further two classes. These are biguanides and thiazolidinediones. Biguanides is an important class of drugs. It consists of drug called as metformin, which is a very important drug. It not only decreases insulin resistance but also decreases the extent of gluconeogenesis in liver. Thiazolidinediones consists of drugs such as pioglitazone. Now, normally when insulin acts on insulin receptors due to prolonged use, there can be development of insulin resistance. So these drugs, by various mechanisms, they will decrease insulin resistance and increase the action of insulin. Third class of drugs are the drugs which will enhance the secretion of insulin. Now, these drugs can be further divided into two classes. They are the drugs which will block potassium channels. These are potassium channel blockers, and these are DPP4 inhibitors, that is dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors. Now, potassium channel blockers, they can be further divided into two groups. These can be sulfonylureas or they can be meglitinides. Now, sulfonylureas, this class contains drugs such as tolbutamide, gliclazide, glipizide, and glimepiride. Now, these drugs, they are very important in diabetes, and they inhibit potassium channels and increase the release of insulin. Meglitinides contain drugs such as ripaglinide and natiglinide. These drugs also block potassium channels and increase the release of insulin. As we see, blocking of potassium channels is important in the release of insulin. DPP4 inhibitors, they consist of drugs such as linagliptin, alogliptin, sitagliptin, saxagliptin, and vildagliptin. Now, these gliptins, they inhibit the enzyme DPP4, which metabolizes GLP-1. So this GLP-1 is metabolized by DPP4, and inhibition of this enzyme will increase GLP-1 levels, which will cause insulin release. Now, another class of drugs, these are the miscellaneous drugs. They consist of two classes, SGLT2 blockers and another D2 agonists. SGLT2 blockers consist of drugs such as dapagliflozin and canagliflozin. D2 agonists consist of drugs such as bromocriptine. Now, SGLT2 blockers will block SGLT2, which is an active transporter in proximal convoluted tubule, so it will prevent the reabsorption of glucose into the blood. And D2 agonist will act on renal blood vessels and cause diuresis and cause increased excretion of glucose. Now, before discussing these drugs in detail, let us discuss insulin. Before discussing insulin, we should know something about diabetes mellitus. As we know, diabetes mellitus, it is a metabolic disorder. It is characterized by fasting blood glucose of more than 126 mg per dl, and after administration of 75 mg oral glucose and measuring blood glucose levels after almost 2 hours, the levels of glucose will be more than 200 mg per dl. It is also characterized by glucosuria, that is presence of glucose in urine, as well as hyperlipidemia and negative nitrogen balance due to excessive protein catabolism and diabetic ketoacidosis. Now, mainly because of hyperglycemia, there is non-enzymatic protein glycosylation. This non-enzymatic protein glycosylation results in several pathological changes, especially in small as well as large blood vessels. So there are microvascular as well as macrovascular changes, and as a result of these changes, there is development of atherosclerosis, diabetic retinopathy, diabetic neuropathy, etc. Now, the extent of protein glycosylation, it can be measured by measuring the levels of glycosylated hemoglobin, that is HbA1c. Diabetes mellitus can be of two main types. These are type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. In type 1 diabetes mellitus, there is destruction of beta cells by mainly autoantibodies. It can be a component of autoimmune disease, and therefore it has a juvenile onset or early onset, and it is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. That means there is decrease in insulin release. In type 2 diabetes mellitus, the insulin levels can be decreased, they can be normal, or they can be even high. Thus, it is insulin independent diabetes mellitus. The problem is there is resistance to insulin in the peripheral tissues, because of which these tissues become irresponsive to insulin. It is also known as mature onset diabetes mellitus. Apart from these, there are other types of diabetes as well, like type 3 diabetes mellitus, which is called as mature onset diabetes of young. Type 3 diabetes mellitus is called as mature onset diabetes of young, and type 4 diabetes mellitus, it is called as gestational diabetes mellitus. Now, insulin, it was discovered by Banting and Best in 1921, and the pure form of insulin, crystalline form, was first isolated in 1926. The structure of insulin was given by Sanger in 1956. If we take a look at chemical structure of insulin, it consists of two peptide chains. These are A chain and B chain, and in total it has 51 amino acids. A chain and B chain consist of 21 and 30 amino acids respectively. And these two chains in the pro form of insulin, they are joined by another peptide chain which is called as C peptide. Between these chains, there are presence of disulfide bonds which can be present between two chains, or they can be intra peptide chain. So this is C peptide which connects the two A and B chains, and it is present in pro form of insulin. When insulin is secreted by beta cells, it is secreted in the form of preproinsulin, which consists of 110 amino acids. Now 24 amino acids are cleaved from this, and it results in formation of proinsulin, which in the Golgi apparatus undergoes proteolysis, and which results in cleavage of C peptide, and so there is formation of active form of insulin and C peptide, which is both of them, they are stored in separate vesicles and released into the blood on appropriate stimuli. Now, if we talk about the regulation of insulin secretion, the release of insulin occurs because of three main stimuli. These can be chemical stimuli, they can be neural stimuli, or hormonal stimuli. A chemical stimuli, it consists of presence of glucose and amino acids in the blood. Glucose and amino acids cause increased release of insulin from beta cells, because glucose will stimulate GLUT2 receptors on the beta islets, and which will take in glucose, and it will be metabolized to form ATP, which will block ATP sensitive potassium channels and cause partial depolarization of membrane, which opens voltage gated calcium channels and causes calcium influx and thus insulin release. Amino acids also cause insulin release in a similar fashion. Now, neural stimuli can be either parasympathetic stimuli or sympathetic stimuli. As beta cells, they are well innervated by both sympathetic as well as parasympathetic neurons. Now, parasympathetic nervous system by IP3 or DAG pathways will cause increase in intracellular calcium and will cause increase in the release of insulin. In sympathetic nervous system, beta 2 receptors, being GS type, stimulatory type of G protein coupled receptors, will cause increase in cyclic AMP and thus increase in release of insulin, whereas alpha 2 receptors, being inhibitory type of receptors, will cause decrease in cyclic AMP and thus decrease in insulin. Other than these, whenever glucose is present in, or other food is present in the gut, it will cause release of certain substances like GIP, GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, or gastrin, cholecystokinin, or secretin from the gut, and these are known as incretins, and they will act on beta cells and cause release of insulin. In pancreas, different cells are present, like beta cells which release insulin, alpha cells which release glucagon, and delta cells which cause release of somatostatin. Now, somatostatin will inhibit release of both glucagon as well as insulin, whereas glucagon will stimulate release of both insulin as well as somatostatin. On the other hand, insulin will cause decrease in release of glucagon. So that's how these hormones control the release of each other in pancreas.